It all started with a girl sitting alone, looking at the cloudy weather and thinking how much worse it can get. She has so many problems in her life that a little more and she will give up. She can't stop her tears. They flow like a stream, and her emotions are uncontrollable, and there is nothing she can do about it. The girl is on the verge. A little more and she will go crazy. She feels especially bad when she looks at portraits of her relatives. Here is a picture of mother and her brothers, who are no longer here because someone took their lives. She still can't come to terms with it. It's too much of a loss. Nothing could be worse. She was left alone with her father. But that's not all. Soon they will do the same to her. That's why the situation is critical, and nothing makes her happy anymore. She sat there for a while, sad, thinking about what to do today to distract herself, and at that moment someone knocked on the door. The girl wasn't expecting anyone today, and considering all these circumstances in the future, she was even a little scared. This man came into her room, warned that it was him, so there was no need to worry. Now she feels much better. With him, she can at least feel safe, and this doesn't happen with everyone. Saya asks how she is feeling, because she understands that now more than ever she needs support, or at least some concern from others. She really needs to talk, hug someone, and get away from these terrible thoughts for at least a minute. She is honest with him, like with no one else, asking what he would do in her place, because if everything continues to go on as usual, then they will get rid of her too. He hugged her even tighter and asked her not to think about it, because now he was personally responsible for her safety. The girl thanked him for his concern, and she also can't express in words how much his devotion helps her out. She feels so good with him now that she doesn't need anything else for peace of mind. She only needs him. On the 3rd, he swore that he would not let her die under any circumstances, no matter what it cost him. Saya, the royal tutor, he was the only person in the castle she could trust. He came to their house when she was only 9 years old. He was a student of the previous royal tutor. Even to her, shy and timid, he was kind and patient. Sai was able, by some miracle and persistence, to convince her father, the king, that education was necessary for the nobility. As her teacher, he quickly and clearly explained to her what it meant to be part of the royal family. When her family was destroyed, he stayed by her side and shared her grief. And before she realized, he became a special person for her. No one else in this world can replace someone like Saya. Meanwhile, the girl remembered that he probably wanted to tell her something, so she asked what happened, and he said that, in fact, today again. On the Lord Este arrived, whom, as before, no one was expecting. But he, as usual, was in his style. Este Horn, the first prince of a neighboring state, and also her fiancé. They are supposed to have a wedding soon, but it is being postponed because the girl has some kind of bad feeling. The guy has been coming here a lot lately, but I'd like to know how worried he is about the country. Meanwhile, Saya fell to his knees and said that he was terribly sorry if his words seemed out of place, because she is part of his family, so they should be open with each other, even when it comes to their personal life. Maybe it's none of his business, but still, the guy said his opinion. He thinks that the Lord Este is a very suspicious person, and before marrying him, it is advisable to get to know him better. Even though deep down she thinks the same, she still decided to ask him why he thought that. Sai began by saying that although it is a neighboring state, the journey from the kingdom of Horn to their kingdom still takes half a day, even on the fastest carriage. So the question arises whether she doesn't think he has a reason to come to her so often, making such a journey. The lady asks what he means by this, to which the friend replies that the Lord learned about the situation in this country, and this made him greedy. In his humble opinion, he may use these visits as a pretext to map the terrain of their country, and it also cannot be denied that he may have planned to take over this country without marriage. He conducted an internal investigation. Next to Lord Este, there is always the same woman. He is definitely going to marry her, but only after he completes his plan. As soon as he no longer has to hide in every sense of the word, the guy will probably announce her and mercilessly break Amelia's heart. This made it even harder for her. The girl had already been thinking about this, and now all these assumptions finished her off mentally. She closed her eyes and said that she can no longer believe anything, at least because if she thinks about something bad, then she convinces herself of it without receiving proof. Saya wanted her to send the Lord away because it was better for her not to see him, no matter how hard it was to decide. Still, in such situations, you need to think about yourself, especially since this person they are discussing does just that. Amelia will feel later, and since he doesn't respect her, there's no reason to respect him. The 1-year-old girl thanked her friend again. He made her feel better, and that's priceless. He said again that he is ready to do anything for her, and this is the least that he is capable of. Satisfied, Saya ran to the Lord to report that Lady Amelia was not feeling well. Lord thinks that this is probably all the influence of constant stress. Tried to appear caring, not knowing how pointless it is. He says that he wrote another letter, then asked her to give it to him as soon as he had time. And of course, he pretended that he would be incredibly happy if she answered it. Saya can barely contain his laughter, but still agreed to deliver the letter since he personally asked for it. As soon as he was alone, he decided without hesitation to get rid of it somehow, because it was unlikely that Amelia wanted to keep it in her hands. He is sure that she is not interested, so he did it his way. He simply threw the letter into the fireplace. That's where it belongs. He is very pleased that the girl trusts him so much that he can make such decisions on his own, knowing that she is not against it. Moreover, it will be better for everyone. The Lord does not deserve her attention and never did. Everything was more or less normal, but at one terrible moment, it turned out that, to put it mildly, the girl was left alone in her family. A friend rushes to her with all his might to tell her what happened. Her father was found dead. It was very difficult to talk about this. He even began to breathe quickly, because he imagined how hard it would be for her to hear this. Has recovered from the loss of 2 of her relatives, and now her father is gone too. To survive this, she will have to try very hard. Naturally, first of all, she demanded to be taken to the place where he is now, but it would be better if she didn't see it. This is too terrifying a sight, and also father's eyes remained open. Amelia, unfortunately, will remember them for a long time. She screamed in horror throughout the house. What she feared most had happened, and judging by the statistics, there wasn't much time between the events. She began to lose consciousness, because obviously she was next in line and she had nowhere to hide. A friend caught her in time to prevent her from hitting herself, while everyone around her was horrified at how unfair it all was. This family has done nothing wrong to anyone, and obviously all these losses are not an accident. Someone is behind this. She remembers little of what happened after her father's death, but time did not stop, and contrary to her feelings, events continued to develop. She was the only surviving member of the royal family, so she had no choice but to become queen. This was a mandatory stage, although she herself did not really want to be in the center of attention, and especially to take on so much responsibility. She didn't really have time to organize her personal life, solve her problems. And then there was the whole kingdom. After some time, her assistants came to her to inform her that unrest had broken out in the south of the country, and that something urgently needed to be done about it. The markets are running out of food, and they don't have enough people to deal with the bandits, who are growing in number. The queen believes they should ask retired knights to help with security, and also promise to cover their salaries so they will be more motivated to cooperate. Recently, it has become her duty to protect this country. Now she is a queen and her heart is forever given to the people of Urtina. On the same day, after a few hours, Saya did not come, and she just wanted to ask if they managed to find out anything about the person who destroyed her father. She is not going to turn a blind eye to this and wants to bring the matter to the end so that the culprit answers for everything he did. He says to this that all agencies are investigating, but there are still no results because the case is not easy. The villain took into account all the factors and prepared thoroughly. After these words, the queen could not stand it. Everything happened somehow by itself. She began to get angry and lost control of herself. She is simply scared to realize the fact that she is the only one left from the royal family, and if everything continues like this, then she will be next. Every time she thinks about it, her condition worsens to the point that she can't stand on her feet. He, as usual, doesn't go anywhere, doesn't abandon her in difficult times, and tries to do everything to make things easier for her. Amelia, as always, asks the same question, what should she do? As if he knows the answer. Her father, mother, brothers, they were all destroyed. Only she remains to protect the kingdom. She is confused, feels as if she is on her plate, and now the girl knows better than anyone what it is like to be alone. He responded to this by saying that, as she had said, if she, the only surviving member of the royal family, were to die, this country would plunge into even greater chaos and would be completely destroyed. He could swear that he could protect her at any moment, at any cost, but in this huge castle they would never be sure when and where someone would decide to strike at her. The guy tries to explain that until the culprit is found, maybe she will consider the possibility of hiding in his quarters in another wing of the building. In short, he wants to protect the kingdom and Amelia, the one he loves very much. He is ready to beg her for this, just to guarantee her safety. At the moment, this is all he can offer. After all, there was too little time to think. And even if so, his option is better than doing nothing at all. In the end, the girl agrees. He is very happy about this, and they are already going to his chambers, where she has never been. Her Majesty doesn't even know approximately where the room is. He has never told her about it before, and she herself was not interested. There was no reason for this, but now there is a reason, and it's very good that few people know about this room. The door is locked with a large lock, the key to which is only in his possession, and no other copies exist. He himself appears here very rarely, because lately there is too much work, and there is no point in coming back for a couple of hours and then leaving again. Also, what is important is that no one else enters this part of the building. Although it is a bit cramped here, he believes that this is the safest place. Finally, she asked only one question. What if something happened to the kingdom while she was hiding here? He answered that she had nothing to worry about. He would take care of it. Meanwhile, at the meeting, the guy announces that for the time being, he will take full responsibility for state affairs. Also promises to become a link between them and the people, because at the very least, he doesn't want to shift so much responsibility onto someone else. He is ready for this, and as long as there is motivation, this should be used. Another very important point that has already been discussed is that for safety reasons, that room will always be locked. Only he will have the key to it, so that no one can disturb it without his knowledge. They met again, discussed everything again so as not to miss anything, and he finally promised to resolve this whole crisis. And until then, she just needed to stay here. She agrees to do as he asks. After all, he has never made a mistake, and she has never regretted listening to him. Amelia is more than sure that everything will be fine if she trusts her friend and stays with her people, because he always leads her to the right decision. And so her life began here, and in the meantime, a few days later, he returned to her again. This time he came a bit late. She was expecting him earlier, but she was still very happy to see him. The main thing is that there is no bad news, and everything is okay with him, and everything else is not so important. The guy apologized for keeping her waiting, and while he was thinking about what to say, she noticed that he looked a little worried. Amelia asks what happened in the kingdom, asked to be honest with her, no matter how bad everything is, because if something happens to this country, she needs to somehow look into the eyes of her family in the afterlife. He said that people suffering from poverty and illness begin to lose faith. Before she started to worry, he asked her to calm down because he had a way to get through this. She understands that since he came here, he needs something from her. Amelia asked what exactly, and he asked her to think about offering her blood to those in need. Girl asks why this is necessary, because she herself does not fully understand how it is connected. The thing is that he recently managed to find out that her blood is a cure for all diseases, no matter how strange and fabulous it may sound. The blood that flows in her veins is described in ancient books as the blood of miracles, and this is confirmed. She is able to heal many human diseases and perform endless miracles. She lived her whole life and couldn't even imagine that blood was capable of such a thing. And if it weren't for him, she would never have known about it. Naturally, after such information, she wanted to share anything just to help the people. Guy says, undoubtedly, this series of tragedies is a divine test. It requires her to use the blood of miracles. This is a divine test. If they can overcome this, then even this abandoned castle will gain divine protection and restore peace for everyone. He understands perfectly well how outrageous and strange this sounds, but asks her to at least try. Then she will be able to see everything for herself. The girl caught herself thinking that Even if everything sounded even stranger, she would still do everything he asked of her. Because in such a hopeless situation, she has no ideas of her own. All she can do is trust him and try any methods that will lead to something good. In the end, she agreed. And at that moment, he seemed to blossom, his eyes filled with hope, after which the guy thanked her for her boundless kindness and love for this world. After this, she no longer needs to say anything. Now he will do everything else. The guy asked for forgiveness in advance, began to take her in his arms, and does not explain anything else. On the one hand, there is nothing wrong with that. But on the other hand, given her anxiety, it would have been possible to do without such surprises. In the end, he took off his jacket, slowly carried her to the bed, and for the first time in a long time she felt so awkward with him. The girl understands that he can be trusted, but what he does gives rise to all sorts of thoughts and fantasies. She is perplexed and afraid to ask why he carried her to the bed. Couldn't he have done it standing up? His gaze at this moment is so mesmerizing that she has no strength to say anything. All she can do is give in and watch what he does. Right up until the moment he touched her face, she still hoped that she was misunderstanding him. But now that his hands have started going where she didn't allow, a slight panic appears. She thought that before doing this, he would ask if it was possible. But the guy took control of everything. His hand is right under her dress, and it seems that everything she thought at the beginning is what will happen now. Now it's clear what kind of blood he needs. He doesn't want to make wounds on her and decided to get it in a slightly unconventional way. Only now he asks for forgiveness for his insolence, and she can't say anything because it's too late. If she understood him correctly, then it is a little unclear why he needs a knife, because in this case, nothing special is needed, and in order to take off clothes, it is not necessary to cut them. The guy apologized again and warned that he was about to inject, and in order not to think about it, he suggested looking him in the eyes. He promised that everything would be fine, and it wouldn't take long. But those words were very different from what she had already come to terms with. It turns out he just wanted to immobilize her. That's why he lay on top. But after that, the question still remains. Why did he need to put his hands under her clothes? He touched her legs and got blood from her hand. Something doesn't add up here, but she's embarrassed to talk about it. It is easier for her to ignore this moment than to discuss something and at the same time blush like a tomato. From that moment on, day after day, the queen shared her blood. And now a month has passed. This is another day when he comes to her for this. And although right before her eyes the wounds only increased, Saya told her that the commotion in the castle had not yet died down, so she couldn't resist or even hint that she didn't like something. Since he must attend the Council of Elders, it is time for him to leave, and the sooner the better. Lately, when he leaves, it seems like she desperately needs to hear that she is bringing benefit to the people. The girl doesn't let him go until he confirms this, because if everything they do is useless, then she should know it. He understands perfectly well how important it is for her to know everything that happens outside this room. So, of course, he reacts to it normally, but he still sometimes hides some unpleasant moments. It is for her own good. And in the meantime, he says that for the people, she, the only survivor of the royal family, is the hope itself. And it is not only about her blood, but also about her existence. She must know that she is their salvation. And even if her blood were to be without healing powers, her mere existence brings great benefit. As long as people know she's okay, they believe everything will be fine soon. And that's the main thing. Immediately after this, the guy went about his business. He securely locked her in the room, and this time he checked it especially carefully, because last time he almost left the door open. He promised himself never to make such a mistake again. Otherwise, any day it could turn into a big problem. As he walks down the corridor, he hears the screams of people who are outraged that they don't know what's wrong with their queen. It's strange that no one told them that she was okay, although it's not necessary to tell them where exactly she is. But something is wrong here. The guy couldn't tell everyone for a long time that she was in a safe place and that there was no need to worry about her. People are outraged. They complain that she ran away, abandoned her people, because she was simply scared and could not take responsibility as a queen. They think that this is very low, and the elder looks at them from the window and smiles, as if he is not telling Her Majesty something. What he tells her and what actually happens are very different, and she doesn't even realize it. He remembered her last phrase, or rather the question of whether there was even the slightest benefit from it. And after that, with a smile, he very quietly said that she was very useful, at least for him personally. The way he behaves outside the secret room makes it seem like he is deceiving the queen, and that in fact he does not have the intentions he told her about. All this time, whenever he came to her, he put on a mask every time, as if she had nothing to worry about. And she mistakenly thought that he was completely open with her, and there could be no secret between them, especially at such a level. The girl lived in hiding, trusting his every word, while outside the room he did whatever he wanted. She would only know that at that time there was no hint in the country that peace would soon come. Every time I wanted to leave here, I was afraid of breaking everything my friend had done. But it would have been better if she had not listened to him. As soon as she comes out, everything will become clear. But this will not happen as long as she trusts him. Every evening passes the same way. Amelia looks out the window, dreams of a happy future, and has no idea when it will all end. What bothers her most is that it seems to her that nothing depends on her. And also recently, Saya has stopped coming as often as before. Suddenly, she saw knights from the window, and among them, Este, whom she had also not seen for a very long time. As far as she knows, he shouldn't be here anytime soon, but for some reason, he is here. Naturally, she was indignant, especially since everyone knows that without her knowledge, it is impossible to just come here in the middle of the night without warning. Guy asks what she's saying. He thinks she was told something, and he also added that he didn't touch her family. It was supposed to be a normal conversation, but suddenly a phrase was heard that was hard to believe. He says that it is her best friend who is the one to be wary of, and that it is supposedly because of him that she has so many problems in her life. After this, she lost her speech for a while. She couldn't say anything, because it's impossible to believe something like that, out of the blue. She says that this is all impossible. He is deceiving her, and also advised not to say anything like that again, otherwise she will regret it. At this moment, the guy takes something out of his pocket that proves the truth of his words, and she recognized this object even from afar. This is the very ring of her mother, which she had been looking for a long time, but still could not find. The girl asks where he got it from, and he asks if she remembers Victor. Naturally, Amelia knows this man. He is Sai's assistant. The friend agreed to pay for the treatment of his stepmother, but only on one condition. He was supposed to help with the murder of the royal family, make it look like a robbery, and then sell the victim's belongings on the black market. Every time this guy talks about him, it's hard for her to believe it, but something inside tells her that there's no point in him lying, and maybe, trusting her friend too much, she didn't notice how he became different and began to take advantage of it. Esther said again that when Victor's stepmother died, they got rid of him too, and now Saya is portraying her as a worthless queen who abandoned her people. And as soon as she is no longer of use, he will do the same to her. He managed to open her eyes to the reality that was carefully hidden from her. And all because of her naivety and excessive trust. The guy asks her to trust him because there is no point in him deceiving her, like some. As soon as he shouted that he could take her to some place, an arrow immediately pierced him, which immediately caused a noise. His assistants were confused. They were afraid that something would stick into them too, which is quite likely. There are more and more arrows. It is unclear where they come from, and Amelia, due to panic, does not know what to do. There was a commotion. No one knew where to run, because danger could be waiting everywhere and overtake at any moment. Everyone is screaming, panicking, and the girl also has a feeling that it is not safe for her to watch all this either. What worries her more is who dared to do something like this and not warn her about it, even though she is here. Saya should have controlled everything and reported in advance. She starts screaming and begging for it to stop. But when nothing happened after that, she realized for the first time that her words meant nothing. At that moment, the door to the room opens, and she doesn't even turn around, because the only person who can come is him, friend, to whom she had so many questions in a couple of minutes that he seemed to sense and came to talk. It's very interesting what to expect from this meeting, because each time he is not as kind to her as before, it seems like he is slowly beginning to reveal his true face. Apparently, hiding is starting to get boring. She'll be lucky if he just came, and she'll have time to find out more about him. The girl asks how he is doing, trying to smile so that he doesn't think that she found out something about him that she shouldn't have. Unable to contain herself, Amelia got carried away and started talking about what had happened, even saying that, according to one person, her friend was involved in the death of her family. The girl asks if it's true or not, and so that he doesn't get angry with her, she says that she personally doubts it and asks this question just in case, out of nerves. Instead of making excuses and skillfully avoiding the question, he begins to manipulate, as if everything has become clear to him and it is offensive, that she is inclined to trust the Lord more than her best friend, who has done so much for her. And then he says that all this time he was on her side, and no matter what anyone said, he would never betray her. Then she looked at her reflection in the window and decided that she had enough of pretending. She was a queen, so she had every right to demand the truth. It becomes clear to her why all these days she had the feeling as if something was not being told to her. It was time to sort things out. She asked him directly what he was hiding from her and admitted that she seriously doubted his honesty. Question was asked why she continues to donate her blood, while nothing changes and she still hasn't heard any good news. Immediately after this, his look noticeably changed. The guy seemed to have taken off the mask that he wore every time he entered this room. At that moment when she pressed herself against him, hoping that she was very wrong about him and the Lord was lying, he says that it's probably time to tell everything. He even warned that she won't like it. Saya said with a smile on his face that she understood everything correctly. He had a plan, and for this, he needed her blood. He used her not for the people, but for himself. He wanted to receive more, but he felt sorry for her and did not demand as much as he could have if he had had a little more impudence. After all this, he says that it seems to him that there is nothing terrible in this and asks her to agree with this. And after that, he promised that he will not treat her badly as long as she shares her blood with him. Everything that had been said before was more or less acceptable, but the fact that he then called her his dog, that was too much. Amelia immediately moved away from him and forbade him to touch her, because he was already allowing himself too much. The girl pushed off so hard that she found herself too close to the window and couldn't hold on, fell from it head first, but she didn't scream much, as if her emotional state was in a critical state, that even in this situation, she didn't fully understand what was happening while she was in flight. Even then, she thought about how she could not notice anything. She just needed to be not so naive and sometimes check the people with whom she communicated. She allowed herself to be deceived by a man who knew her so well that he was able to find an approach and take advantage of this. When she admitted that it was her own fault, a moment later, she found herself in a completely different place, where it was light, warm, and cozy. It's certainly very cozy here, but the fact that she was not here just now is very disturbing. It is unlikely that this is a dream, because she clearly remembers that she did not fall asleep, and this could not have happened by accident. While the girl was looking around, someone knocked on her door and asked if they could come in. She allowed, and to her surprise, she didn't even recognize those voices that she missed so much. Amelia saw her parents, and at that very second, she rushed to them to hug each of them. Even if it's a dream, she wants to enjoy the moment and listen to their voices longer. It was an unforgettable feeling. As she ran towards them, it seemed like an eternity had passed. Parents don't understand why their child is so excited. She never ran up to them like that before. And then something suddenly happened to her. They thought she must have had a bad dream, so they started hugging her to make her feel better. Father asks what happened to her. Did she really have a nightmare because of the temperature, as he and his wife thought? And he also says, who could have thought that she would catch a childhood disease when she herself only had a couple of years left until adulthood? But praise be to God, at least she came to her senses. After these words, the girl realized that something was wrong. She hadn't been called a child for a long time, and since she hadn't looked in the mirror yet, turned around to look for it because she clearly remembers that it should be here somewhere. Imagine her surprise when she approaches the mirror and realizes that even from afar she has the appearance that she had already managed to forget. No dark circles under the eyes, even skin tone and neatly trimmed nails, and judging by the nightgown she wore several years ago, everything that is happening is in the past that she missed. At that inopportune moment, someone knocked on the door again. Only this time the girl had no idea who it could be. Then a voice sounded that she definitely did not forget. Although she did not recognize her parents at first, It was impossible to confuse it with anyone else. She personally didn't answer anything, but her father allowed the guy to enter instead of her, not even imagining how much she didn't want it. He said this with a casual expression on his face, and his daughter wanted to sink into the ground, just not to see him at least in the near future. When I see him, I only have one desire, to fall through the ground and do something so that he is no longer in my sight. He comes in with a slight smile, and she starts to tremble and loses the power of speech, as if she was looking at a monster and not a human being. Guys ask her how she feels, trying to act like he cares, realizing that he used her almost from the very beginning. When he realized that he could get benefit from her, I don't want to talk to him. After everything she learned about him, Saya will no longer have a single chance to gain her trust, no matter how hard he tries. Amelia asks how he dares to show up at her place, and her parents are shocked that she is talking to him like that out of the blue. After all, it was good. Guy pretends that he doesn't understand anything and doesn't deserve such treatment, but remains silent. And her father came up to her and asked her to calm down, to which she told him that this man was a monster who would destroy their country. She burst into tears and said that he would destroy everyone, but this would happen over time, when he would get rid of those who could hinder him from doing this. Maybe she got carried away in vain and told about it in front of him, but everything has already been said. All that remains is to convince the parents. The daughter begs to believe her. They must expel him, otherwise they will later regret that they did this earlier. Man really likes to watch someone cry, so he couldn't stand it and very loudly asked her to stop. It was unpleasant for her because she was trying to help and convey the truth, and he was yelling at her like that, as if she was guilty of something. Fathers explain that as the rulers of this country, they cannot judge anyone based on mere fleeting emotions. This is unacceptable. And also reminded that from the very day that Saya arrived in this castle, he worked tirelessly for many years, so he can be considered a reliable young man, and suspecting him of something is at least disrespectful. The girl couldn't say anything about this. She was disappointed. And when her father didn't see that she had a desire to apologize, he repeated that calling someone with such qualities a monster was unheard of rudeness, so she should immediately correct everything and apologize to him so as not to disgrace the family. This means that it doesn't matter what she says now. No one will believe her without proof. And Saya now knows that she knows much more than he thought and will be more careful in this regard. In the end, she only made things worse, angered her father and everyone around her who had previously supported her in any way. Now she was left completely alone. If this is really her past, then judging by what is happening, those very terrible events have not yet begun. In the end, the parents decided to apologize instead of their daughter. They explained everything by saying that she had a fever. She probably just dreamed something. That's why she was behaving this way. To which the guy says that there is nothing to worry about. He understands everything and didn't even think of holding a grudge. Moreover, it was a great honor for him to appear in Her Highness's dream. It's just a pity that it didn't happen in the best way, and as a result, this dream ruined the relationship between them. After this conversation, she had no choice but to return to her room and think about what had happened. In any case, you need to change your future, because if you do nothing, the same thing will happen. She experienced it, and having the opportunity to return to the past. This is unacceptable. So far, she has little idea of what can be done, but she is not going to sit idly by either. It doesn't matter anymore whether it's a vision, a dream, or reality. If this is a new form of her regrets, then she just wants to get out of here. To do this, she needs to stop a friend who is no longer close to her, but for the sake of the plan, she agrees to suffer a little. If he is not stopped, something terrible will happen, and she will not allow it to happen a second time, even if it is impossible. He destroyed the royal family because he wanted to get her blood. If all this has not started yet, maybe he does not know about her yet. Maybe he does not know about her blood yet. If she leaves the palace now, for example, she might marry Este earlier than they planned. Then the girl remembered that her friend was very good at pretending, so she needed a more reliable plan to protect herself from him. She is worried even to think about it, let alone do anything about it. He is not an ordinary person, but soon everyone will find out about it. If he does find out the truth about her blood, not only the Este, but his entire people will be in danger. In such a situation, you can't spend a single day unproductively. Otherwise, you'll have a serious lack of time later. That person has probably thought everything through to the last detail and has backup plans. She needs to prepare accordingly. Now, you need to keep a very close eye on it, devoting most of your time to it, at least at first. Amelia thought that if she could find out everything about her blood, maybe it would help her prepare. But wherever she looked, she couldn't find even a mention of something like blood of miracles. The question arises, how could the friend know that her blood is a panacea? It is possible that no blood of miracles existed at all, because he could have deceived her in this too. In the end, she doesn't even know if her blood was used for anything. There is not the slightest information. While she was diligently examining each page, without missing a single line, she suddenly saw a silhouette that cast a shadow right on the table. Amelia almost fainted. She was so scared that she froze in one place and remained in the same position. She didn't expect to see him here at this moment. She didn't expect him, since he was here. After the recent conversation, it's not surprising. It will be very bad if he decided to talk seriously about what she already knows about him. But maybe the guy will pretend that he did not take it seriously. This is also quite possible. He says that she looks very enthusiastic and asks how long ago the lady started reading such complex books. At one time, even he had to spend a lot of time on them. She answers him that, of course, when reading she cannot do without a dictionary, and asked him to agree that it is much more useful to start with the difficult, so that later everything else seems easy. Sai responded to this by saying that her dedication to her studies was admirable, and that if he could help with anything, he warned her that she could always turn to him. Amelia still doesn't understand what's on his mind. All his phrases sound much more frightening than they actually are, and she's more confused by the fact that he already knows everything and could change his plan. Now they are like two enemies who are trying to pretend to be friends, and only one of them looks calm, Saya. At the moment, she has no evidence that he knows anything about her blood. What to do now is unclear. If she had a way to somehow check it, it would be much easier. When the guy said goodbye and started to go about his business, she suddenly stopped him, and he was surprised, because he couldn't even imagine what she wanted to tell him after everything that had happened. Amelia decided not to mince words this time. She asked him directly if he knew anything about something called the blood of miracles. He wasn't really surprised by this question, as if there was nothing wrong with it. Saya says that he knows about this. They say that such blood is capable of healing any wounds and curing all diseases. After that, she told him that all people have red blood, and it is not clear how to determine that the blood of a particular person is special. So she slowly leads him to the answer that she needs. Say as, he tries to tell everything he knows. Many books say that this blood has a special smell, the floral scent of lilies. This is how one can understand special blood. After that, she asked him one more question. How long had he known about this? But the guy refrained from answering this question. Only a couple of seconds passed, and then he began to tell that the blood of miracles, according to most, is just a legend. Some say that nobles with the habit of drinking blood simply made it up to justify themselves. But others claim that it was invented by new religions as bait for the sick and suffering. After that, the guy slowly approached her, even leaned over a little, and asked with a grin, since when she became. Amelia explains that she just thought that if someone actually had that kind of blood, it would be a heavy burden. He became interested in what books she had read about this and learned about it for the first time, and then said that if there is a book dedicated to the blood of miracles, then he would also like to read it with great pleasure, because he likes such ancient texts. Amelia came up with the idea that her grandfather once told her about this, and it seems to her that there is hardly anything like that here. At the end, he apologized for disturbing her studies, and now it was time to leave, and it was for the best. After a difficult conversation, she realized that she shouldn't have behaved that way, as she only made things more difficult for herself. It was a mistake to ask him directly. He might suspect something, so it is advisable to immediately correct the situation. When he said the phrase that he liked ancient texts, Amelia immediately remembered that the shelves in his office were bursting under the weight of ancient books. If she somehow miraculously gets there and no one notices her, maybe she will be able to find something useful. She didn't want to enter that room again at all, but there was no choice. and it was better to take a risk than to waste time and then regret it. As it turned out, the door had no latches or locks, which meant that all this was only needed to hold it. So she managed to get into this place. There is a special atmosphere here that is a little alarming. Or maybe it's just fear that he'll come here, understand everything, and then problems will start. On the table, the girl found a huge diary. She recognized his handwriting and couldn't pass by. Something inside her tells her that this is what she needs. After all, where else can she find out more about him? Besides his personal diary, where he is honest with himself, although usually such things are not left in a visible place, now it is not particularly important. The first thing she read there was endless phrases about how he really wanted blood, and not ordinary blood, but the blood of miracles. Amelia is convinced that she has gotten involved with a madman, but she has no idea how to deal with him. At that moment, she felt sick from the mere understanding of what he really was, and that this whole friendship was nothing more than a tool and a cover for a grand plan. While she was trying to calm down, she accidentally looked to the side and noticed a book that was glowing on the far shelf, as if something was illuminating it. It can be seen even from afar, and it also looks beautiful. Of course, she wanted to check what it is. On all of these shelves, it is very painful. It becomes difficult to breathe in a closed room without ventilation. But even this will not bother her now. The girl didn't even notice how she climbed onto the highest shelf, and now it is in her hands. Opening it, something else inexplicable began to happen. At that moment, she realized that something was wrong. And when I looked at this image, a very bright light appeared from the window, which is clearly connected with this. Out of fear, she threw the book aside, but it didn't help. The glow only became brighter. It literally blinded. When she threw the book, she clearly saw it close, but now somehow it began to open on its own. All the pages started flying out of it one by one. It looks beautiful and impressive. The main thing is that it doesn't harm her personally in any way. You never know what kind of book it is. Maybe there is some kind of curse placed on it. At least, judging by what is happening, this is not excluded. At this moment, it is difficult to believe that everything will be okay, and there is nothing scary about it. After some time, a silhouette of a man appears in front of her. Only he doesn't look like her friend at all. It's someone else, and he also has dark hair. He looks kind, but given the circumstances, her whole body is shaking in anticipation of something bad. The girl doesn't know yet whether she will regret taking the book or not. Now she is just interested in finding out who he is. Judging by his reaction, he's used to appearing when he's summoned. But it's strange to him that it was an ordinary girl who did it. Amelia does not give in to his melodic and very soothing voice. She demands to answer the question of who he is, because if he cannot at least help her, then there is no point in this conversation. Moreover, it's already late and she needs to hurry to get out of here as soon as possible. Judging by these words, the guy understood that she summoned him without knowing how it happened or who he was, and also called her a lucky girl. She perceived his behavior as rudeness, even wanted to hit him, but he quickly moved away, and then warned that if he continued to allow himself to do this, she would call the guards. He says that of course he doesn't mind, but this way she will only attract more problems to herself. If everyone finds out that she was here, it will only get worse. Amelia thought that there was no need to let him know that this was the case. She had never seen this man in the castle before. We urgently need to understand who he is. He doesn't look much like a servant, and he also behaves as if he is not obliged to serve her. It's as if he is not from this world. One can only hope that he cannot know for sure that she secretly made her way into this office. As soon as she thought about it, he said the same phrase, and she was already in a panic. How did he know about it? The guy replied with a grin that it is not difficult for a demon to read what is in a person's heart. After he told her who he was, she couldn't believe her eyes, because he didn't look like him at all. He had a pretty good-looking appearance, and demons were usually considered to be somewhat unpleasant. It's usually very tiring for him to explain things like this, but today he's in a good mood, so he agrees to show something. With just one look and one hand, he created chaos around. In a second, lightning appeared, which almost created a fire, and a strong wind that could be heard even in the house. Having seen all this clearly, she now has no doubt that he is strong and powerful in every sense of the word. Now I don't want to behave with him as arrogantly and rudely as she did in the beginning. Guy called himself a first-class demon, and she summoned him through that book, which serves as a portal as soon as someone touches it. It all sounds very fantastic and unimaginable, but now the girl believes his every word. She thinks to herself that this can't be, but with her own eyes she sees that everything is so. Now she is very scared when he approaches her. Before she knew nothing about him, everything was fine. But now she trembles at every glance of his. He is basically used to this kind of reaction, especially from those who meet him for the first time. Meanwhile, the next day has arrived. Amelia has been at some kind of training since the morning. After yesterday, she miraculously managed to get up early without any problems. She feels very cheerful, swinging her sword as if she had slept very well and was full of energy. Is fencing training. Although she doesn't mind doing it, everyone else doubts that she needs to spend her energy on it. Moreover, she has a wedding coming up soon and needs to take care of her skin. Usually at this time, girls relax and take time for themselves, but she is waving a sword. There are even rumors about it already. When the maids were discussing her, Saya just happened to be passing by and heard what they were talking about. Meanwhile, an assistant approached Amelia and suggested taking a break, and when she agreed, he was very happy. At this moment, she thinks to herself that she knows nothing about this man, but she has no time to dwell on unnecessary thoughts. Now it is much more important to become stronger, to pump yourself up as much as possible while there is an opportunity. After training, even a soldier told her that he should retreat because she has talent, and she responded to this by saying that she simply has a good teacher, and they are clearly exaggerating so that she would want to continue doing this. Everything was fine, but at some point, a rack of swords collapsed near her, and one of them hit her. Girls fell, and everyone around noticed that her pants were torn, and there was a rather large wound on her leg. As soon as she saw the blood, she immediately thought that it was absolutely impossible to allow Saya to somehow end up nearby and smell that smell. It wouldn't be surprising if it was on his initiative that she started doing this. There's a much higher chance that she'll get bloodshed. But the girl isn't thinking about it yet. She just saw him on the horizon and already began to get nervous like never before, because if he smelled the smell, everything was lost. He started asking her to let him treat the wound, but Amelia couldn't tell him anything. Although from the outside, he looks very kind, like any other person who wants to help. She knows him too well and understands him more than others. He only touched her to wipe the wound. She asked him not to touch her, hoping that it would help. She said that it was just a scratch, so there was no need to worry about her so much, especially since they all had more important things to do. This time, Saya listened. He apparently just wanted to appear calm in front of everyone. But if there was no one around, everything would have clearly turned out differently. And she is also very embarrassed by this look. There is a huge probability that a little later he will want to approach her again in order to somehow get a drop of blood. She wants to believe that it just seemed that way, and that he is as attentive to me as can be. But how everything will actually turn out, all that remains is to wait and guess. This evening she has, more or less free, she can devote time to herself. But just like on other days, she just couldn't fall asleep. It is too difficult for her to waste time. She began to study a lot of documents to find a way to stop this villain. And then there's a knock on the door. On the one hand, she's not surprised, but on the other, there's nothing good about it. Saya came to her, and he asked to give him just 1 minute, which means he either came to say goodnight or on a very serious matter. Obviously, if it's the second option, then he's definitely up to something, taking a risk. She hinted that it's already late and they can discuss everything that needs to be discussed tomorrow. He explains that this is a matter of life and death and asks to be allowed to at least say the most important thing. It seems that Saya has no intention of retreating. Amelia decided that if something goes wrong, she can still call someone for help. She opened the door, greeted him with a smile, and allowed him to enter the room, but only for a short time, as he had promised. He thanked her for her understanding, but what she saw in his hands reminded her of something. These objects even emit an unpleasant smell, and also an energy that you want to distance yourself from. She felt the same way when he came, supposedly to do good deeds, but in fact deceived her. It's scary to even ask why he brought it. She didn't ask him about it, especially since he said that he wanted to say something, not do something. Guy asks if he understands correctly that she was injured during training, especially since recently in the capital, there have been more frequent cases of bacteria entering through wounds. They release toxins that in the worst case lead to death. And he also says that he would like to collect some blood to check if everything is okay. Supposedly, it will be bad if not something bad happens to such a beautiful lady. Lies and doesn't blush, and she is very tense because she is thinking about how best to refuse him and how safe it is. He asked her to lie down on the sofa. There was a little more light here, after which she answered him that she had already been examined by a doctor. He said that there were no complications and she was completely healthy. Saya began to explain that it was just a precaution, but she screamed and asked him to stop insisting. She did not want to waste time on this and asked him to leave. And then what was expected begins. The guy does not grab her hand while trying to seem polite. He explains that he is worried about her health and does not understand how she can refuse such a thing. He is so strong that he does not have enough strength to free himself or even try to resist. This means that he felt her blood and came to get it, despite the fact that it is late. Amelia did not give in to him this time. She took advantage of her last chance, screamed so loudly that she was immediately heard. And even before the maid came running, someone came to the door and announced that Mr. Saya was calling His Majesty. Apparently, it was his assistant who was waiting in the hallway, and that's for the best, because who knows what would have happened if they had said it a little later. He was so persistent that he could even hit her by accident, just to get his way. When the assistant entered the room, he noticeably calmed down, as usual when they were not alone. This means that the girl is saved for a short time, but this does not mean that you need to relax. Next time he comes up with something else and you will need to be ready for it. The lady is so confused that she doesn't remember what she was doing before he came to her. She thought that nothing special would happen, but until she saw it, that assistant approached her and started throwing some cloth on her head as if he wanted to kidnap her. At least that's the first thing she thought. Amelia asks what this means. She will complain about him. But when she looked in his direction, was very surprised because there was no one around. The room was silent, as if she had dreamed it. And a moment later, the silhouette of the same guy who appears at night appears behind. He came closer and whispered in her ear, asking if he understood correctly that he could be useful to her. She had simply indescribable feelings that cannot be described in words. He seems to look scary, but for some reason, she feels calmer next to him than with Saya. Despite this, she still pretends as if she is not happy to see him, pushes him, as if she has forgotten who she is talking to. The girl asks what he wants, and in such a menacing voice, as if she is not afraid that he will answer her in the same way. He asks if this is really her gratitude. It seemed to him that this slippery man was causing her trouble, so he decided to help her out. Instead of thanking him for this and apologizing, she asks how he can think that she will accept the help of a demon who is only capable of betraying people. He responded to this by saying that he would like to see how she copes with these problems on her own, without him. Every time he says this, she begins to calm down, just apparently spilling out, which she could not spill out on Sai. The demon explained that it was not customary to refuse his help, and something told him that she had no choice. She herself is powerless, and if she refuses to cooperate, she will only regret it more than once. Listening to the demon is very stupid, she knows, but as he said, it will be much more difficult to cope without him, only until she knows what he will ask for in return for his help. If the desire is acceptable, then she must agree. She didn't really have time to say anything to him, and then suddenly, the guy quietly came closer, extended his hand to her, and then very quickly picked her up in his arms so that she could no longer resist. Even though she's really tired of feeling defenseless, everything happens somehow easier with him than with anyone else. On the way, she asks why he is so persistent, and he just asks to be quiet and not make a lot of noise. After some time, they found themselves in another place. He mercilessly threw her on the floor to remind her that not everything is so simple. Looking around, the girl remembered this place. This is Sai's office. They are here to take the book. Only with it they can make a deal. Without it, nothing will work. They teleported thanks to his magic. She liked it so much that she would like to travel like this from time to time. She told him this out loud, and he admitted that he was flattered by her recognition of his powers. Amelia doesn't know what he really wants, or what she'll have to give up for this deal. But there's probably no reason to refuse to use a creature that people wouldn't dream of using for their own purposes. Even if it means paying with her life, she must protect her family from a monster who thinks he has the right to do so. This is the reason why she got a second chance. It's time to take advantage of it. The girl has more or less figured out the situation. Now she better understands what is what and is ready to tell him her answer. The demon seemed to read her thoughts and asked if she had really decided to make a deal with him, explaining that he simply understood it from her silence. The girl clarified in advance that if she does what he wants, she understands correctly that she can make any wish for him. He responded that he could fulfill 3 wishes, so there really was no point in her refusing. And the price for the fulfillment of her desires, her memories, in particular the most valuable ones, that is, happy memories. She still doesn't really understand why he needs them and what the point is, but it sounds good. Happy memories. For her, these are memories of her family, which means she will lose these memories. Thoughts appear in her head that this deal will help her protect her happiness, and now nothing should make her doubt. So she told him that they agreed. He can take everything he wants tomorrow. The demon says that the contract is already signed. He only needed her consent, without any documents. And after that, he asked her to voice her wish, to which she asked to make her an ordinary person with ordinary blood. If she can just get rid of the cursed blood that led her entire family to death, there won't be any problems in her life. Suddenly he says that he can't do it. He doesn't have the power to change the past, because he can't interfere in matters of life and death directly, which means he can't resurrect the dead, and he can't influence people to control them. In short, he can't change the laws of this world, in which case she just wants to ask him to protect her family. Because if nothing changes, her family will die cruelly and senselessly, so she wants him to do something about it. The girl also mentioned that if he fulfills this wish perfectly, then she will no longer have any other conditions. To this, he said that then there were no problems. Then everything suited him, and her family would be protected. But he must also say this: if she dies, all wishes will become invalid, and the deal cannot be transferred to someone else. In other words, if she wants to protect the life of her family, then she herself must continue to live. In that case, it's time to pay for the first wish. This is what he's hinting at, so that she shares her memories right now. A wonderful moment flashed before her eyes when she was with her grandparents. In that case, he takes these memories as soon as she gives them to him. She will never remember them again. Before this, the girl began to get nervous, and he immediately asked whether her memories or the life of her family were more important to her, so it would be much easier for her to come to terms and stop holding on to the past.